You clicked on this video because deep down, you're searching for that one story that doesn't just entertain. You want something that grabs you, pulls you with quiet urgency, and refuses to let go. And let me tell you, this story, it's not just about love. It's not just about billionaires, betrayal, or a forced marriage. It's about secrets stitched between lies, about people pretending they are fine when they are breaking inside, and about a deal that should have been all business, but turned into something dangerously real. And yes, by the end of this video, you will get the answer you came here looking for. No clickbait, no gimmicks, just pure emotional truth woven into a love story that begins with a signature on a contract and ends with something that might just destroy them both. But before we dive in, let me ask you something personal. Ever had to pretend you didn't feel something? Have you ever stood next to someone you're not supposed to love, but your heart was already gone? That psychological push and pull, the slow burn tension between enemies who are secretly burning for each other, that's exactly the world we're about to step into. So lean in. I want you to stay with me all the way to the last second, because I promise, there's a twist waiting for you that will shake everything you think you know about fake relationships, billionaire romances, and the dark truths people hide behind carefully chosen words. Our story begins in a glittering world of ruthless ambition, cold contracts, and twisted family loyalties. The air smells of leather seats, designer perfume, and power plays behind boardroom doors. It's New York City, present day. Fast-paced, glittering, merciless. Billionaires don't fall in love here. They make mergers. They seal deals. And when they say, "I do," it's usually because someone forced them to. In this world, emotions are liabilities, and love? It's the most dangerous weakness of all. Enter Ariel Monroe, 24, sharp-tongued, fiercely independent. She's not your typical heiress. Raised by a single mother who walked away from a powerful legacy, Ariel has always lived in the shadow of a family name she refuses to claim. She's brilliant, sarcastic, and emotionally guarded to a fault. She doesn't believe in fairy tales. She believes in facts, escape routes, and trusts no one. Especially not billionaires in tailored suits who think they can buy everything, including her future. Then there's Damian Blackwood, billionaire tech mogul, 31, cold, calculated, and breathtakingly charming when he needs to be. With eyes that see through people like glass, Damian didn't build an empire by playing nice. He's the kind of man people either worship or fear. There's no in-between. His reputation? Clean. His past? Hidden. But underneath that steely, controlled surface, there's something broken, something dark, and he has just 3 months to fix it, or lose everything. That's where the contract comes in. Ariel never wanted to be part of the Monroe dynasty. She thought she escaped it for good, until a mysterious clause in her late grandfather's will drags her back in. She's the missing key to a billion-dollar merger between two corporate empires. But there's a catch. To access the inheritance, she must marry Damian Blackwood, and stay married for at least 1 year. No exceptions, no emotions, just a paper marriage, for power, prestige, and a legacy neither of them asked for. Fake relationship, false proximity, one luxury penthouse, two people who absolutely hate each other. Or at least, that's what they say. You see, what makes this story different isn't just the enemies to lovers trope or the billionaire angle. It's why these two can't stand each other. Damian has secrets that could destroy more than just his empire. Ariel has wounds that go deeper than money ever could. And the closer they get, the harder it becomes to pretend. What begins as cold attachment turns into late-night arguments, unexpected tenderness, and moments they can't explain. A war of words, a battle of wills, and a dangerous game of pretending that starts to feel a lot like the real thing. But trust? That's the hardest part. Because in this world, everyone wants something. And love? Love is just another game. Or is it? There's a moment, a single night, that changes everything. And by the end of this story, you're going to find out exactly what happened that night. Why Ariel disappeared without a word. Why Damian's empire nearly collapsed. And why, years later, a forgotten photograph surfaces, with both of them in it, smiling, and wearing wedding rings they were supposed to fake. So if you think you've seen every billionaire romance out there, if you think you know what's coming next, think again. This isn't a story where they fall in love in a week. This isn't the kind of story where everything gets tied up with a bow. This is raw. This is messy. This is about two broken people trying to survive in a world that uses love as leverage, and the one mistake they both made that might cost them everything. Stay with me, because the deeper we go, the more you will realize this isn't just a love story. It's a psychological game between two people who never wanted each other, but might not survive without each other. And just when you think you've figured them out, that's when the real truth begins. The room had fallen into a heavy, almost suffocating silence, one that didn't belong in places like this. Not in a ballroom lit by antique chandeliers and filled with whispers of old money. Ariel's heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she took a cautious step back, her breath catching in her throat. She wasn't ready to face him again, especially not here, especially not now, and definitely not like this. Her escape had been carefully planned, quiet, calculated, designed to keep him and everything he represented far from her new life. But there he was, Damien Blackwood, standing not 20 feet away, holding something that shouldn't exist anymore. That folded contract, the one with both their signatures, was meant to be ash, destroyed in the fire of a past she swore she'd buried. Yet he was holding it as if it were a weapon, his expression unreadable, controlled, but undeniably dangerous. No one knew how close they had been, not even Damien. Whoever sent that message wasn't just watching, they knew everything. She stumbled into the hallway outside, heart pounding in her chest, only to find Damien waiting for her, his car already pulled up to the curb. The driver didn't look familiar. His eyes flicked toward the rearview mirror, and Ariel swore she saw something cold flash behind them. "Get in," Damien said flatly. "We don't have time." She hesitated. Her whole body screamed not to trust him, not after the way he had vanished from her life only to reappear with forged papers and cryptic warnings. But the message had shaken her more than she cared to admit. Someone was trying to scare her. Maybe it was working. Inside the car, Damien didn't speak for a long moment. Then he handed her an envelope. "This came to my office yesterday. No return address. It has your handwriting on it." She opened it cautiously, unfolding the letter inside. Her eyes scanned it once, then again, her throat tightening with every word. It was a note she had written 3 years ago, but she'd never mailed it. It was the last message she drafted to Lila the night she disappeared, tucked away in her old diary and locked in a safe back in Chicago. Her private safe, one only she had the combination to. "Who has access to your place?" Damien asked, watching her carefully. "No one," she whispered. "I haven't even been there in over a week." Damien frowned. "Your place was broken into last night. Nothing stolen, but someone went through your files. And they left that envelope on my desk, deliberately." Ariel's stomach twisted. Someone was messing with them both, drawing lines between the past and present, trying to force something out into the open. But what? Why now? She was supposed to be invisible, off the grid. She'd left behind the world of family wealth, forced marriages, fake smiles, and power games. But now, someone was yanking her back in, and every thread they pulled seemed to lead straight to Lila. She was about to ask Damien something, anything, when the car suddenly jerked to a stop. The driver turned his head slightly. "Problem," he said, pointing toward the roadblock ahead. "Unmarked black SUVs. Men in suits with A-pieces. No lights, no badges." Ariel felt her breath hitch. "What is this?" she whispered. Damien's jaw clenched. "They're not with me." The driver reversed hard, tires screeching as they spun away from a barricade. Damien reached under the seat, pulling out a second phone, a burner, and dialed fast. "The drop's been compromised," he said to whoever was on the other end. "We need a new location." Then, just before hanging up, he added, "And tell her the copy's gone. Someone beat us to it." Ariel turned sharply toward him. "What copy?" He didn't answer, but his eyes were darker now. Not with anger, with fear. It was the first real emotion she'd seen on his face since that night they signed the contract. Later that night, they arrived at a safe house miles outside the city. A hidden estate Damien said used to belong to one of his father's former business partners, a man who disappeared under suspicious circumstances 5 years ago. There, in a dusty study filled with untouched books and rusted lockboxes, Damien finally started talking. "There's a second marriage contract," he said. A real one. Hidden. It was drawn up before the one you signed. Signed by your father and mine, before either of us were given a choice. Ariel stared at him, numb. But why would that matter now? Because it's not about the marriage, he said. It's about what's attached to it. A trust fund. One your family doesn't want the world to know exists. Billions. Off the books. And the contract is the only document that names a rightful beneficiary. You? She asked. Damien shook his head. No, you. Before she could process that, a sudden crash upstairs made both of them freeze. They weren't alone in the house. Damien pulled her behind a bookshelf, whispering that they had been followed. Ariel's heart thudded in her ears as footsteps echoed down the hallway above. Then, without warning, the electricity cut out. Total darkness swallowed the room, and a woman's voice rang out through the silence, calm, almost familiar. Ariel, it said softly, you shouldn't have come back. We warned you once. The voice wasn't Lila's, but it knew her name. It knew her past. And worse, it knew she was listening. Back in Chicago, while Ariel and Damien were cloaked in shadows miles from the city, someone else had just been dragged into the storm without warning. Lex, Ariel's older half-brother, the one who distanced himself from the family years ago after a public falling out with their father, sat in the corner booth of a low-lit jazz bar he managed near the South Loop. The bar was one of those places no one talked about unless they needed to disappear for a few hours. That night, the air smelled like old bourbon and unresolved secrets. He'd just closed up, the last of the staff heading out into the cool dark, when a plain white envelope was slid under the front door. No knock, no footsteps, just a soft hiss of paper brushing wood. Lex moved cautiously, instinct sharpened by years of watching his back. Inside was a photograph, grainy, old, black and white. It showed a younger version of Ariel, standing next to a girl with dark hair and a guarded smile. Lila. But what sent a spike of eyes through Lex's chest wasn't just a picture. It was a handwritten note on the back in faded red ink. They lied to you too. Lex didn't hesitate. He pulled out his burner, the one Ariel made him promise to keep in case of emergencies, and called the number she'd given him last winter. It rang twice before cutting to static. Then a distorted voice spoke, low and slow. She's not where you think she is, and she's not safe. You have until midnight to decide whose side you're on. In that moment, Lex realized something terrible. This wasn't just about Ariel anymore. Whatever they were caught in stretched beyond fake marriages and inheritance games. It was a network of buried truths, one that someone was determined to keep sealed, no matter how many lives it cost. He'd always suspected their father had ties to shadowy dealings, but now he could feel it in his bones. The trust fund wasn't just money. It was leverage, a key to something bigger. And Lila's disappearance all those years ago, maybe it had never been about running away. Maybe she had found out too much, just like Ariel was beginning to. Meanwhile, back at the estate, the tension inside the house had turned electric. The voice had vanished. No more footsteps echoed through the upstairs floor. But the damage was already done. Damien scoured the perimeter, checking locks, scanning the security system for breaches, but everything looked untouched, impossibly so. Whoever had entered hadn't forced their way in. They'd been let in. Ariel tried to make sense of it as she stood alone in the dusty study, staring at the dim light flickering from the fireplace. There was a box on the shelf she hadn't noticed before, metal, with initials carved into the lid, LMV. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were pages of journal entries, each dated in Lila's handwriting, recounting meetings, cryptic symbols, and names neither Ariel nor Damien recognized. The final entry, scrawled hastily in ink so dark it bled through the page, simply read, "The man in the photo lied. He said I could trust him. If you're reading this, it's already too late." But Ariel didn't have time to process the message, because just then Damien returned, pale, jaw tight, holding something in his hand. A flash drive. "It was left in the ignition of my car," he said. "This wasn't there before." They inserted it into an old laptop, both of them leaning in close, the room dead silent except for the whir of the fan. What appeared on the screen wasn't a document or a map. It was a short video, grainy surveillance footage. The angle was off, as if hidden, but Ariel immediately recognized the place. It was her father's office. And in the footage, her father sat at his desk, with Damien standing across from him. The timestamp was dated 6 months ago. "Explain," she demanded, cold rising in her chest. Damien didn't speak right away. His eyes locked on the screen, his jaw twitching. "This isn't what it looks like." But Ariel wasn't convinced. The footage showed Damien sliding a folder across a desk. Her father opened it, scanned it, then nodded once and smiled. Not a warm smile, a knowing one. It was a kind of smile men use when sealing deals that came with consequences. Her voice cracked. "You said you hadn't spoken to him since the contract." "I didn't," he replied quickly. This must have been before. But Ariel could feel the gap growing between them like a fault line. The contract, the threats, Lila, now Lex. The timeline wasn't adding up, and more than that, it felt like someone was deliberately playing them against each other. Each new clue contradicted the last. Every answer opened more questions. The story kept rewriting itself, and no one seemed to be in control anymore. Were they being manipulated by someone still in the shadows? Always. Was one of them lying? Outside, the wind howled through the trees, sharp and sudden. The screen flickered. The video glitched and cut to black. Then another message appeared, typed in bold white text. "You're chasing ghosts. You should have left the past buried. Midnight is coming." Tick-tock. Ariel looked at Damien. For the first time, she wasn't sure she knew who he really was. But then again, could he say the same about her? And somewhere, not far away, a phone buzzed on a marble countertop in a house neither of them knew existed, its screen flashing with a single word, activated.b by the time the sun broke the horizon, casting long, broken streaks of light through the misty windows of the estate. Ariel hadn't slept a second. The video haunted her, those grainy frames flickering behind her eyes on loop, replaying the conversation between Damien and her father over and over, each time layering in a new thread of doubt, a deeper vein of fear. She had grown up surrounded by secrets, by men in boardrooms whose smiles never reached their eyes, by whispered argument behind closed doors and cold stares from staff who knew better than to speak. But never had she felt this exposed, this hunted. There was something primal in the pit of her stomach now, a weight that didn't budge even as she tried to breathe it away. She could sense the walls tightening around her, not metaphorically, but literally, as if the house itself had shifted in the night. She decided she needed air, space to think. But when she stepped outside through the side entrance, every hair on her body stood up. It wasn't the morning chill that did it. It was a silence. No birdsong, no crunch of leaves under squirrels or wildlife. Just a void. The kind of quiet that signals something is watching. And then she saw it. Clear footprints in the dirt near the garage. Large, deliberate steps leading up to the edge of the guest house window. But the window was locked from the inside. Ariel's blood ran cold. Whoever had been there had been close enough to see her, maybe to hear her. She rushed back inside, barely able to keep her hand steady as she bolted the doors behind her. Damien was already downstairs, rubbing his eyes, a towel thrown over his shoulder. His usual composure was gone, replaced by a fractured edge in his voice when he said, "Something's wrong." "Lex isn't answering." Ariel grabbed her phone, redialed the last number, but it didn't ring this time. It went straight to voicemail, then cut off completely with a mechanical beat that didn't sound like any normal disconnection. Her heart dropped. Lex had always been careful, paranoid, even if he wasn't picking up. Something had happened. Within the hour, they were on the road, driving back toward the city, each mile stretching longer than the last. Ariel's mind raced with questions. Had they drawn Lex into this by sharing too much? Or was Lex already a target for reasons they didn't understand yet? Was this all still connected to Lila, to the mysterious contract, the estate, her father's will? Or had the threat grown beyond anything she could have imagined? As they neared the bar, Ariel saw the police tape fluttering from a distance. The windows were shattered. The door hung open at an angle that could only mean it had been kicked in. A single squad car remained parked at the curb, but no one stopped them when they approached. Inside, the smell of smoke and something darker, something burnt, filled the air. The manager said Lex had never come home after locking up. The security footage was gone, wiped clean. Only one thing remained, a message carved into the brick behind the counter, messy and deep, like it had been scratched by hand. "You're next. That was the moment Ariel's entire body stiffened, her knees nearly buckling. This wasn't just about control or wealth anymore. This was punishment, a warning, and it had escalated. Whoever was behind this wasn't afraid of being seen anymore. They wanted Ariel to know they were close, and that she had nowhere left to run. That night, back in the city, she couldn't sleep in her own condo. She couldn't trust the estate, and now she couldn't trust home. Damien booked them a room under a fake name at a hotel near the outskirts of downtown, the kind of place that didn't ask questions and took cash without a glance. Even then, Ariel triple-locked the door, pulled a chair under the handle, and tucked a kitchen knife under the pillow just to breathe. The reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Her face was hollow, eyes sunken with fear and exhaustion. Her whole life she'd been told to play smart, stay quiet, smile for cameras, and read between the lines. But no one had prepared her for this kind of danger, one that came without rules, without logic, only threats hidden behind every familiar face. Damien tried to comfort her, but even he had begun to fray at the edges. She caught him checking his phone more than usual, closing the screen quickly, pacing in the hallway late into the night when he thought she was asleep. She wanted to believe he was still on her side, but doubt had rooted itself deep inside her now. The footage, the folder, the unspoken moments. What if he wasn't just a pawn? What if he was part of the very thing she was trying to unravel? Then, just as dawn broke again, she received a message. No number, no trace. Just a single sentence. Go back to where it started. Bring the locket. She stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. The locket, her sister's, Lila's last birthday gift, found locked in a drawer at the estate after she vanished, untouched for years. Ariel hadn't thought it meant anything, just another relic of loss. But now it was a key, a puzzle piece, a breadcrumb. And somewhere, across town, someone else received the same message, only theirs ended with a different line. If she doesn't, you will. Who was this new target? Another player in the game? Another secret waiting to unfold? Ariel didn't have those answers. But she knew one thing now, without a doubt. The past wasn't done with her yet. And the shadows she thought she had left behind were just beginning to close in. The rain had been falling all night, a soft, eerie rhythm that blurred the city lights outside the hotel window. Ariel sat alone at the edge of the bed, locket in hand, her thumb absently brushing over the worn silver. The message wouldn't leave her mind. Go back to where it started. She hadn't touched the locket since Lila vanished. It had always seemed like a painful souvenir from a chapter she never wanted to revisit. But now, holding it in the silence, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. A tiny ridge beneath the hinge, not part of the original design. With trembling fingers, she slid a nail into the seam and heard a soft click. The locket opened, not to the familiar photo of the two sisters smiling in matching scarves, but to something else entirely, a micro SD card, almost invisible, wedged beneath the photograph like it had been waiting all these years to be discovered. Heart racing, Ariel fumbled for her laptop. She knew better than to connect it to Wi-Fi. Whoever was watching her, they'd find the signal. Damien had left to get coffee, but she didn't wait. The files opened slowly, each one more unsettling than the last. Hidden folders, old surveillance clips, audio recordings, emails, and then a video, footage from her own engagement party. But not the part she remembered. The speeches, the toast, the carefully curated photos for social media. This was grainy, uncut, raw. Someone had filmed from the shadows. Not just her and Damien, but conversations between her father and unknown men in suits. Words exchanged under the low hum of music. Promises, threats, numbers, contracts. Damien's name was mentioned, again and again. Not as a fiancé, not even as an ally, but as a buyer. Ariel couldn't breathe. She paused the video, scrubbing backward to be sure she hadn't misheard. Her father's voice was unmistakable, but colder than she remembered. He'll play the part. She'll sign whatever she's told to. He's paid well to keep her distracted. She stared at the screen, heart pounding in her ears. It wasn't a marriage. It wasn't even a business merger. It had been a transaction. She was a product. The door behind her clicked. Damien walked in, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, mid-conversation. He froze when he saw her expression. She turned the laptop toward him. The video paused at the exact moment his name was spoken. He stared at it in silence, jaw tightening, but didn't move to deny it. Instead, he sighed and set the coffee down slowly, his shoulders dropping as though he had finally stopped pretending. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said, the calm in his voice more terrifying than if he had shouted. Ariel backed away, her voice shaking. "Was any of it real? The wedding? The late nights? The way you looked at me?" She felt the ground beneath her shift, the last threads of certainty unraveling with every word. Damien didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked toward the window, staring out into the storm like he was waiting for something. "At first? No," he said quietly, "but it got complicated." His eyes flicked back to her. "You weren't who they said you were. You weren't just leverage." She didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Complicated? After everything she'd lost, everything she'd questioned, that was all he had to say? But before she could respond, Damien's phone buzzed again. The name on the screen caught Ariel's eye. "Lila." She froze. "Is that some kind of sick joke?" she asked, her voice sharp now, a mix of fury and disbelief. But Damien looked genuinely startled. He turned the screen to her, showing the text, "She knows. Get her out. Now." Ariel's head spun. "Lila's dead." She had seen the investigation reports, the search parties, the case that had quietly been closed with no conclusion. But Damien wasn't denying this one. His face had gone pale. "I thought she was too," he whispered, reading the message again. "We were told she didn't make it, that she'd become a liability." He opened another app and, after a few steps, pulled up a secure folder, photos, files, and in one image that made Ariel nearly drop the laptop. A woman, blurry and hidden beneath a hoodie, but unmistakable. The eyes, the posture, the scar under the left cheek. It was Lila, not a ghost, not a dream, a surveillance still from 2 weeks ago, taken in a quiet town just 2 hours from the estate. Everything Ariel believed about the last 4 years shattered in that moment. Her sister wasn't dead. She had been hiding, or had been hidden. And suddenly, the locket wasn't just a clue left behind in grief. It was a breadcrumb, intentionally placed, meant to be found by someone who knew they were being watched. Ariel realized then that she hadn't been the one uncovering the truth. She'd been led toward it, manipulated into a trail her sister had laid out long ago. But why now? Why surface after all these years? And more importantly, if Lila was alive, who else knew? And then came the knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. No voice. No footsteps in the hallway. Just silence. Ariel turned to Damien, who was already reaching for his gun. He didn't speak. He didn't have to, because whoever was outside that door wasn't supposed to be there. ChatGPT said. The door creaked open slowly, revealing nothing but the dim glow of the hallway. No figure stood there, no shadow, no sound, only a folded piece of paper resting on the floor like a ghost's final message. Damien picked it up, eyes scanning it quickly before passing it to Ariel. The handwriting was Lila's, unmistakably hers, jagged and panicked. "They know you're close. If you want answers, come to the glass house. Bring no one. Midnight." Beneath the note, in smaller script, was one final line. "Don't trust Damien." The glass house wasn't a metaphor. It was a real place, the old estate their father had bought in upstate New York, a relic of wealth and secrecy that had once hosted elaborate family parties and private meetings that ended with closed doors and whispered threats. Ariel hadn't been there since she was a teenager, but it still haunted her dreams. It was where Lila had last been seen alive. Now, it was calling her back. The drive there was silent, thick with tension. Damien had insisted on coming, despite her protests. He claimed he wanted to protect her, but every time she looked at him, she saw that video again, his name exchanged like currency, her father's voice cold and calculating. She kept her hand near the pocket knife in her coat, unsure whether she was more afraid of what she'd find, or who she'd brought with her. The glass house stood like a monument to everything broken in her life. Its steel and mirrored glass shimmered under the moonlight, reflecting the trees around it but giving no hint of what lay inside. Ariel stepped forward, heart pounding, every sense on high alert. The door was unlocked. Inside, the silence was unnerving. Dust coated the marble floors, but the air felt alive, recently disturbed. Lights flickered on as you moved, motion sensors humming to life, revealing long hallways lined with portraits of men she barely remembered. Shareholders, partners, allies in her father's empire. The deeper she walked, the more she realized this wasn't just a house. It was a vault of secrets. Then she saw her, Lila, standing in conservatory, backlit by moonlight, older and thinner than Ariel remembered, but unmistakably her. Ariel ran to her, but Lila raised a hand, calm, commanding. "You're not alone," she said softly, eyes darting to the doorway behind Ariel. Damien entered a second later, gun raised. "No sudden moves," he warned, eyes locked on Lila. "I knew you'd resurface." "You always were a coward," Lila said, unmoved, still taking orders from dead men. "Your father's plan never died," Damien shot back. "You just ran before the deal was done." Ariel's head spun. "What deal? What is this really about?" Lila turned to her sister, eyes filled with both love and sorrow. "Our family controlled more than we knew. Tech patents, government data, even AI weapon systems. We were groomed to inherit it, but the moment I found out what it truly meant, what kind of surveillance they were building, I ran. I tried to expose it. I was silenced." Damien stepped forward, gun trembling slightly. "She stole everything. Encrypted files. Records. That SD card you found? It's part of a bigger archive, worth billions. It proves the family wasn't just corrupt. They were criminal." "But you knew," Ariel whispered to Damien, feeling the weight of the betrayal settle deep in her chest. "You were part of this." "I had no choice," Damien said. "They had my sister. I made a deal. I was supposed to keep you distracted until the contract expired. After that, you were free." "Free." Ariel's voice cracked. "I was sold." Lila stepped between them now, eyes on Damien. "You don't have to finish this," she said gently. "You can still walk away." But Damien's phone buzzed, one final time. A text, brief and chilling, terminate both. Leave no trace. He looked at it for a long second, then slowly raised a gun. "They'll never stop," he said. "You don't know these people." "I do," Ariel said, her voice steady now. "Because I was raised by them too." Suddenly, the lights cut out. A second later, a red glow flooded the room as backup generators hummed to life. Security alarms echoed in the distance, and Ariel realized what Lila had triggered, a digital deadman switch. The files were being uploaded. "Live. They know," Lila whispered. "It's done." In a blur, Damien lunged forward, but not at Lila, at Ariel. She didn't have time to think, just react. The knife in her pocket found its target, slicing through fabric and flesh. Damien staggered back, shock in his eyes as blood bloomed across his chest. He collapsed to the floor, weapon sliding from his hand, the buzz of the phone still echoing faintly. But even as he lay dying, he smiled. "You think this ends with me," he said, voice barely a whisper. "There are others. You're not free. You never were." Ariel fell to her knees, breath ragged, the weight of what she'd done sinking in slowly. Lila pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering, "You saved us. You broke the chain." But before Ariel could respond, the house shook, a low rumble, followed by the unmistakable click of doors locking. Every exit. Lila's eyes widened. "They are not coming to clean up," she whispered. "They are coming to erase everything." And in that final, breathless moment, a voice echoed through the room, a voice they both recognized. Their father's, not a recording. "Live. Girls," he said calmly, chillingly. "Welcome home." And everything they thought was over had just begun. The air inside the glass house was thick with smoke and tension, a haze of glowing red emergency lights casting distorted reflections off the mirrored walls. Ariel and Lila stood frozen, facing the sleek panel where their father's voice had come from, disembodied, clear, and real. After years of assuming he was dead, after nights spent replaying lies and secrets in their heads, the truth hit them like a tidal wave. He had never been gone. He had only moved underground, operating from the shadows to control his empire, to manipulate their lives, and to test their loyalty in ways they never saw coming. And now, like the finale of some twisted game, he had called them back to the place where it all began. As his voice continued through hidden speakers, calmly praising, vaguely threatening, never quite revealing his location, the sisters realized he was watching them, maybe even orchestrating this final scene in real time. The mansion wasn't just a place. It was a trap layered in memories, a surveillance system wired into its bones, collecting data like confessions. Lila moved first, guiding Ariel down a hidden corridor she had discovered years ago before her disappearance, one lined with surveillance monitors, decrypted files, and blueprints of the entire state. There, among ancient security terminals, they found the heart of it all, a core drive pulsing with power, containing years of surveillance footage, classified communications, and even biometric data from dozens of unsuspecting allies and enemies. This was what their father had truly built, a network of influence, secrets harvested from private lives, currency traded on human vulnerability. And this was the proof they needed to end him. But even as they stared at the drive, knowing the weight it carried, Ariel hesitated. Revenge would be easy, but justice would be smarter. They had survived the worst, and now they had the upper hand, not because they were violent, but because they were finally awake. The sisters leaked part of the archive anonymously, triggering news cycles and viral TikToks, sparking debates on conspiracy forums and late-night talk shows. The keyword hidden surveillance empire, billionaire family secrets, fake marriage exposed, and corrupt dynasty exposed shot to the top of trending lists. Public pressure mounted, government task forces were launched, and international investigations unearthed even more buried scandals. Ariel and Lila didn't stay to watch it unfold in real time. They disappeared once again, but this time on their own terms. A cabin in the Colorado mountains became their sanctuary, far from the world that once dictated their every move. There, surrounded by snow and silence, they began to process what they'd lost and what they still had. Yet even in peace, shadows lingered. The final piece of the puzzle didn't come until weeks later, when a letter arrived at the cabin. No return address, only a sleek black envelope with a wax seal in the shape of the family crest. Inside was a photo of them as children, happy, unsuspecting, playing in front of the glass house. Scribbled across the bottom in familiar handwriting were the words, "Some chains are invisible. See you soon." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Their father was still out there, watching, waiting. The war wasn't over. But for the first time in their lives, they weren't running. Ariel stood at the edge of the cabin's porch, watching the snow fall, feeling the weight of the journey behind her and the uncertainty ahead. Lila stepped beside her, a steaming mug in hand, offering a small smile that said, "We're still here." And maybe that was enough. For now, the past could never be rewritten, and the scars would never fully fade, but they had reclaimed something far more powerful than revenge, truth. And in a world built on lies, truth was the most dangerous weapon of all. As the screen fades to black, a single question lingers for the audience. What would you do if everything you believed was a lie, and the only way out was to become the villain they always feared you'd be?